Come on, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily this Monday morning. I'm Chamberlain also.
Well, now that you've taken Monday, welcome to the day.
Tuesday, right? There are different options, aren't they? There are 7 days.
Come
so
on,
if I take Monday, take
Would you allow
Tuesday.
me to introduce myself?
All right, go.
Okay.
You have the floor.
Well, there are some very interesting things that have happened over the weekend, so let's see how much of that we can recap. I'm Ajaokuta. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Still didn't take Tuesday.
I'll take Tuesday tomorrow.
Well, I want the skies. I don't want the floor. Good morning and welcome from Abuja. I'm Malpo Yusuf.
Oh, yes, indeed. You know, the sky is a lovely place, especially when it's the starting point, not just the, what's that last word? All right, so...
What's the last word?
It was supposed to be Tuesday for you and Monday for me. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and take you through some of the dailies. But we've got Dr. Abimbola Oyarino joining us today to take us through some of those headlines. He is a researcher with the Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, University of Lagos. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start with this Nigeria this morning, and they lead with politics, and it's our season, and it will be for a while, you know. So look at that. Are you the end game? Reminds you of what?
Yeah, that movie. Yeah.
And then you look at the host of riders here. Security beef up at PDP Secretariat as plots to sack chairman thickens. Pro-anti-RU forces draw battle line ahead of BOT NEC meetings. So it is the big one for this Nigeria today.
Yeah, it's unfortunate what's happening in the PDP because we do know that there's a need for a strong opposition for we to enjoy the dividends of democracy as it were, because I mean democracy is built on the back of options, you know, and what the options. It's unfortunate the way the PDP is conducting its affairs, because it will be tough to defeat a strong party like the APC if they don't put their house in order. And I would say that when people conduct themselves, usually when you sabotage equity, justice, fairness, what you're calling for is crisis. It's unfortunate for 16 years PDP was in power. The culture has not really changed, you know, out of power, and you can see the result, which is crisis upon crisis, when they should actually be forging ahead, creating strategies to match the APC, as it were.
Well, you began by talking about the need for a strong opposition. I've always been bothered about the fact that it would seem like the lead or main opposition party hasn't been playing that role significantly over the past 7 odd years or thereabout. What's your take on that?
Yeah, you mean the APC?
No, the PDP is the lead opposition party now.
Yes.
It would seem like over the past 7 years or thereabout, that hasn't really felt the oomph of that opposition role it's supposed to play.
Exactly my point, because...
why is that?
Well, it's the culture of the party, the ideology of the party. For 16 years, we saw a PDP that thought they were going to rule forever, you know, because there was no strong opposition. But in 2015, APC re-strategized. You know, they came up with the strongest candidates at the time, and the result is what we have today. You see, the PDP needs to, when they lost power, I thought that it was going to be there was going to be a change in strategy, there was going to be a change in approach. They were going to appeal more to the youth, because that's where the bulk of the votes will come from. But you have not seen them doing that. You have not seen them, you know, going for candidates that will appeal to the new order rather than the old order. Because with the old order, it will be difficult to get the APC out of power.
All right, there's this the story above that lead story. Fresh $550 million foreign airlines trapped funds uncovered. and you thought that they were just about sorting that out. And now, this raises a lot more questions and answers, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, what were we doing before now, you know, until the crisis became full-blown? We need to, you know, devise the approach where we tackle issues before they become a mess. Airlines are opting to, you know, jettison the Nigerian, you know, airspace. And what kind of image are we projecting doing that? So I think whoever is in charge should be answering some questions.
All right, that's even though there's another one just beneath that one. This flutterwave story seems to be raising some concerns in Kenya. So who knows? They had accused them of what? Of laundering, but they denied it, saying that's not the case. But now the court seems to be in on that as well. So you might want to pick that up and check it out. That's This Nigeria Today.
The Leadership newspaper is also interested in politics, the politics of 2023 would seem. And look at the lead story. As 2023 campaign begins in 23 days, interesting, 2023, 23 days. Nigerians seek competence above party, religious, ethnic considerations. Stories on page 4. Look at the writers, say next president must be competent, healthy, and of good character. We want leaders who can get this nation out of the woods. And no threat to next year's elections. That's according to the IGP. And the graphics on the front page tell a little more of the story of what Nigerians are seeking. 61.5% said they will only vote for competent leaders, and the rest goes on. What's your take on that?
Those who must have participated in the survey are not the people who would vote, unfortunately. And
oops.
if they do,
big oops. Very
if
big.
they do, the sad part is those who decide who becomes Nigeria's president don't read newspapers, don't watch TV, they are not on social media. They are influenced more by other issues that do not concern the educated elite.
Such as?
Well, because, I mean, I took my time to interview the masses, in quote. Something I discovered is it is those things that we consider negatives that they, you know, use in selecting leaders. For example, they need a leader who would open the votes.
Vote or vaults?
Yeah, I mean, that would share the money. That would make their life easy, because they think that that would actually make their life easy. They think that the current government, you know, has made things really tough, because there was this idea of let us, you know, secure funds, let us take care of corruption and all of that. And to what extent has that worked? So the argument now is we need a leader that's flamboyant. We need a leader that, you know, doesn't hoard and, you know, who is selfish, who is greedy. And it is unfortunate that while, you know, the elite, the educated bulk of Nigerians are looking this way, the masses and the uneducated one are looking the other way. And how we connect and marry our ideas will be a tough one. So 2023, we might see a leader that reflects the yearnings of the masses.
Operative word might, because that may be about to change given the latest data from the voter register by INEC. But again, it remains to be seen, because these are new territories that we're getting into here. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, as you also suggested.
But just this one before we go to Abuja. We are open for forensic audit of fuel supply that's ascribed to the NNPC right above the nameplate. And of course, you know that that's the back and forth going on between the National Assembly and the entire oil and gas industry in Nigeria. What's your take on this?
Well, you see, NNPC might be right that, you know, what they pump out is actually 68 million, but do Nigerians actually consume 68 million? Everything is connected. I still will always insist that the functional system, you know, is in play here. You know, the immigration. What's their role?
Immigration or customs?
Customs. What's their role in terms of securing our borders for this crude to get out? Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, our currency is in a mess, and our currency is beginning to compete, or is now lower than the CFA. So it is not lucrative for whoever is engaging in, you know, stealing our oil to neighboring countries. It's no longer lucrative for them. But we need to tackle the issue of subsidy. Until we do that, and the price of petroleum product now competes favorably with the prices of petroleum products across the West African region, maybe we might stop to fuel our neighbors, you know, from our own pocket.
I wonder how those masses that you talked about, I wonder how they will respond to that one. Let's go to Abuja now. Maokwe.
Well, the Abuja Inquirer also has that story for you, and they titled it like this: After Ali's outburst, NNPC welcomes forensic PMS audits. That is also on the small right-hand corner of the paper. But the lead story is this one, something that we generally take for granted, but seems to be making residents of the FCT ill, at least those who depend on this source. Contaminated water. Water board is killing us gradually. That's according to FCT residents. And the board says broken pipe responsible. So you find details somewhere on page 3 of the paper. When you consider that a city like Abuja was purpose-built federal capital territory, one of the things that you imagine is that it will be a model on every front in terms of electricity supply, in terms of water supply, not just to the central area, that's the Abuja, let's say the municipal district of Abuja, but also to rural communities. And so that's why one should be troubled when you see a story like this: contaminated water. Water board is killing us gradually. As one who, I do not know if you're a resident here or how often you come to Abuja, but how does this sort of headline hit you?
Well, same thing. When I saw this, I'll be careful, you know, using anything coming from the government. I'll be careful taking it in, because we do have a system here where everything goes. We cut corners with virtually everything. I would be careful ingesting anything that the Nigerian government is supervising, because it's a life or death situation. Who is testing that water? What's the supervision like? Do they do periodic cleaning? Do they? I mean, these are issues, and we do know our culture when it comes to getting things right. So my appeal to the Abuja residents will be that if you can dig your own bowl, please, at least you can supervise what happens with your tank. But we should be careful, because the hospitals are not in good shape. Nobody wants to get sick in Nigeria, actually.
Well, really troubling, that particular story. And when you say be careful anything that comes from government, you know, water is one of those commodities that should be ordinarily available in many cities. And in places like Abuja, boreholes are not exactly cheap to drill. It's a big business for those who are into the business. And a lot of people depend on this government water. I'm hoping that the water board people will have we'll seek to defend their name, we'll seek to defend their pay, and we'll do something about the broken pipes. Let us see this story. No threat to 2023 general elections. That's from IGP Baba. That story is on page 3 of the paper. Should we take this? How should we receive this particular story? Because it's very unclear what context he was speaking in. But on the face value, on the face of it, when you say no threat to 2023 general elections, people would ask, Did anyone say that there was a threat? Should there be a threat? Is this an assessment of the entire process and a conclusion that, you know, there is no threat as we see it to the 2023 general elections? Do you share that view?
I do think that a lot of people, consistently, people have often, have this negative impression or idea about the elections, when it's coming up. People always think the worst of it. But, I mean, year in, year out, we always, one way or the other, find a way to conduct, our elections without really breaking down the system. But 2023 is slightly different because we have insecurity in the north, some parts of the north actually. We have insecurity in the east. We do have insecurity in some states in the west also. So the south, there are also security threats all over the country. And these can actually be the reason why some people are actually saying, will 2023 election be free of rancor and dispute? But the truth is, I do not think that, I sort of share the IGP's view that there's a threat to the 2023 election. The 2023 election will come and go. But where my fear is what happens after 2023. Because I see a lot of youths emboldened, they seem to have hope that the 2023 will, be a reflection of their yearnings and aspirations. But my own warning and advice is, don't be too hopeful, because the bulk of those who will decide your fate, they are not on social media. They don't watch TV. They don't read newspapers. So the reality is that some people's hope might be dashed. There's a need to manage that hope, because if we do not manage it, I see a backlash after the election.
Well, let's take a look at New Telegraph. They also focus on politics. Presidential campaign panic in APC over Osinbajo, Lawan, Amechi, others. Party moves to set up reconciliation team, appease aspirants. Tinubu pencils VP to liaise with Christian community, Amechi South. We're waiting for INEC to open window on campaign. And this is ascribed to the party chieftain. So you thought it was only the PDP that was, in some dire straits? How about this?
Yeah, politics is of our interest. Maybe the parties involved now, talking about the individuals involved, they found a loophole that they can exploit to see if they can actually tap into new opportunities coming up, or they're not trying to negotiate post-2023. So the argument is the APC, in actual fact, is managing their crisis really well, because, I mean, this is peculiar to every political party. There will always be interest. And when there is interest, you do have situations like this. The situations are being managed properly because I think they understand the implication of not getting it right. PDP is locking in the corner. There is Labour Party. If the APC start to have internal crisis, it will be difficult for them to pull through, because it is a lot more difficult when you're on top to maintain that level if you do not manage success properly.
That's New Telegraph this morning.
Vanguard newspaper is also listing a number of political parties. We're adding one to the list this morning. Worry in APC, PDP, ADC as party chairman battle conflicts. That's the lead of the paper. Stories on page 5. Fresh push to oust Adamu over APC's Muslim ticket heightens. Wike's campaign fight to finish with IU. Why APC presidential aspirant's parley was botched. Ralph Wosu's tenure as ADC chairman has lapsed, says Kachiko. I don't think we can say enough about this one. But let's take this one. You might be interested. Presidency, Senate mulls banning same faith ticket.
That sounds reflective of democracy. If the party thinks that they are strong enough to have same faith candidates, they should go ahead. Democracy is about free will, you know, the choice to choose. Nigerians have an option. It's not like the APC is putting a gun to every Nigerian's head that you must vote the APC. They think that it is viable to have same-faith candidates. Let them go ahead. Why do we? I mean, we do have the Christians, Muslims, the traditional worshippers, and we do have atheists in the country. So when we say same faith, there's a problem with that. We can't act like just Christians and Muslims.
When I hear same faith, I keep on asking, which Senate are we talking about now? Which Senate wants to do it? Just mulling. I think they'll just leave it at mulling. It will mull itself out of circulation.
Mr. and Mrs. very quickly. Mr. is having a conversation with Mrs. He told you I insulted him. Why not? He owed me some money. Instead of paying up, he was telling me about the latest song. I told him that the only sound I'm interested in is an alert from my bank. Or are you interested in any music? Trust Mrs. Only the type you are interested in. That's the Vanguard newspaper today.
Who doesn't love, who doesn't like at the list the sound of alerts? That's credit alerts. You have to be very specific. Alerts on their phone. The Guardian has this one for you. AMCON buckles under 5 trillion naira toxic asset recovery litigations. That's what they have on the front page. Recovers 1.4 trillion naira out of 5 trillion naira in 12 years. Shareholders seek dissolution of corporation. Creation was misconceived. Can't continue to survive on banks' funding. Debtor firms on life support, operators observe. Trace defaulters to their new investment and arrest them. These are some of the solutions they are looking at, but this is what we see. AMCON buckles under 5 trillion naira toxic assets recovery and litigations. You also have a number of other stories at the bottom and at the top of the paper, but let's focus on this. Is it that the body that bails out companies and tries to recover assets is itself in need of a bailout?
I don't think the problem is with AMCON exactly. The problem is with the people who are managing AMCON. Because we must be clear the objective of AMCON, which is, I think, a good idea. But the management, the running of of AMCON itself is problematic. You know, where we have a reward system, where, you know, a man no man system, as I call it. You punish A, and you're not consistent with your punishment with B in similar situation. A system like that is built to crash. That, I think, is a challenge with AMCON. There's a lot of corruption, which I'm sure we are all familiar with, and these are the challenges. When those are tackled, the idea of AMCON itself is not the problem. It is the management and implementation of that idea.
All right.
Let's leave it there for the Guardian newspapers.
Okay, even though there's some fundamentals that need to change about some of those, how we manage assets recovered here. Because if you look at other climes, what happens is they pay serious attention to the economy and make sure the economy doesn't suffer. But here, if you go to some EFCC offices, AMCON offices, those things are dilapidated, they're crumbling. Those are resources just, you know, deteriorating that. But look at Nigerian Tribune this morning. PDP may ask IU to step aside. Atiku no longer Wike's target, party source, while Otom continues to back Rivers governor. So that's the big lead on the front page. And if I could borrow the word that I used for the previous paper, they were mauling certain things. So let them maul. You can maul on this one, if you will. Let's see. They also have this PMS story. Nigeria spends 6.5 trillion naira annually to subsidize 60 million liters daily supply, ascribed to the NNPC. 60 million, and then we spend 6.5 trillion naira. Just trying to see, oh yeah, this unfortunate incident here. 2 dead as 7-story building collapses in Lekki. Lagos government orders arrest of developer. So that is one that really also raises huge questions. And then I'll go for this one. ASU raises 7-man rapid response team. RRT.
Well,
not RRS.
I don't know what the objective of the 7-man team is, but I do. What I would advocate for is there's a need to dialogue. The students are the ones suffering. I do not know if our educational system will survive these particular strikes that happened consecutively, because you remember that ASU was on strike for close to a year during COVID, and now we're on a strike for close to 7 months now. A lot of lecturers have left.
Wow.
A lot are already changing profession because I tell you for free, it will be difficult to encourage bright, young individuals to come into the academics with the current state of the system. Because I tell you, it is like going into a life of poverty, opting for a PhD or going into lecturing. So a lot of young, bright Nigerians are not opting for that profession. So what it means is that you're leaving it to mediocres. And what we must understand is education is critical. It is key to economic development. And the more we de-emphasize the importance of education, the more we kill this system, because this is the last hope of the common man rising through the social ladder, you know, to become somebody, as it were. But today, what we can see happening in the academics is appalling. Sometimes I do regret opting for a PhD.
Wow, really?
Yes, actually, because there's no monetary value to it. You study for close to 12 years, only to come and earn what a clerk in a bank would, you know, naturally earn. I didn't know that was the situation at the time. If I knew, I wouldn't go into it. And it is now public, because, you know, the lecturers can no longer hide it. And a lot of young people now know, and you see them saying things like, "Whose school help?" And that is the truth. That's
a very, very sad commentary, and it speaks to the heart
and serious
of the challenge of this country if that is not addressed.
Look at the front page of the, I don't even know where to begin with that one, but look at the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. It focuses on something completely different. It's about the economy. And what do you have? Banks, major retailers, others unite against eNaira adoption. I don't know. What's your take on that one?
Well, we're not ready for eNaira. I mean, who is using it?
It's interesting that it's coming from banks.
Yeah, it's not lucrative. It's not working.
Okay, let's just leave that one. Daily Independent, right under the picture you see on the front page, how Tinubu met, resolved Muslim ticket with CAN leaders. Find the story on the inside page. But this one is interesting, and I'm wondering if there is any forward trajectory from it. Ajaokuta still, how FG settled $5.3 billion contract dispute with foreign firm as ascribed to Malami. What is your, how persuaded or moved are you that this resolution, so to speak, will help move the Ajaokuta Steel project forward? There are those who believe that with that moving forward, there is economic development in the offing.
Well, I think the government should just understand that they can't make that place work. They need to. They've tried it several times, and you know, when you try things the same way and you're expecting a different result, that won't work. They've tried this, you know, for years, and they don't seem to get it right. Why don't you look at it as a business and treat it as such? You know, let concession it, privatize it, let private hands, you know, who understand, you know, and sell it properly to people who have the financial capacity, you know, to see it through. And what even stops the government from, using the Awolowo model, where you look for a steel company abroad, that has a technical capacity and the financial muscle, to take over the steel, negotiate equity, and make that place work. That thing is wasting away. You can actually employ more than 10,000 Nigerians, and in a country where there's no job, we can't allow such a magnificent edifice and such a critical sector go to waste.
All right, Dr. Abimbola Yarinu is a researcher at the Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, University of Lagos. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're back in a moment. Do stay with us.
We are here to congratulate ourselves and wish all of us well for the 2023 general elections. That's why we're here. Issues on elections are not made public. And that's why I said you should excuse us. And we discussed extensively, openly, and genuinely for the purpose of seeing the party through the 2023 general elections. PDP is the only way, and by the special grace of God, we'll get there.
Okay. So they're calling for the resignation of your party chairman. What is the thought of the governorship candidates on this?
We have a constitution that governs the affairs of the party. So for anybody to say one should go, we have to follow due process.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, we are looking ahead. I mean, you heard Dr. Yarinu speak about those who he thinks will determine what happens in 2023. Well, we're taking it a step further and in a manner of speaking, looking at the bigger picture, which would include the contestations within the political parties and how possibly it will probably play out. Professor Femi Otubanjo joins us this morning. He is a public policy analyst. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Good to see you again after all.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure you've been keeping tabs on what has been happening. Almost interesting developments across board from INEC, how the registration has gone through. Remember, they had this online bit. Lots of people got in there. Then they have new data concerning those who have just newly registered, who are buzzing. Yes. The elections in Ekiti, Osun, Anambra also held. They tried to deploy that system, which they say they will deploy nationally in 2023. We'll come to that as well. But then the politicians themselves, I guess one can say, they're doing what they usually do, politicking. So from what you see, how should we even relate with this? People seem bothered about it. People, of course, they pitch their tent whichever way. But looking at it from a distance, perhaps from your perspective, what do you see? How do you see this playing out?
I see optimism. I see hope.
On the part of?
In the general political environment. The environment.
Okay.
I want you to understand that in the previous 3 presidential elections, we were almost in a pre-war situation. There was so much stress. There was so much threat of violence. But today, things are different. Things are calmer. The party conventions, the national party conventions, were democratic. They were devoid of any of chaos. Now, there's nobody is talking about war, threats of war if we don't win. When in 2011, people actually rioted after the election because the tension had already been built into it. In 2015, in fact, it was like if we don't win, there will be bloodshed. So 2019, it was the same thing. There was desperation in the system. There was some kind of desperation on the part of the candidates that were the major candidates. But today, that's not there. We have a calm environment that we are going to have elections. Okay. But more interestingly, we have a third force for the first time, a credible third force.
In fact, I was going to say that. Yeah. When you say today it appears calm, could that be largely or partly owing to what you just spoke about, the third force? Because almost every region, I mean, if you have some leading candidates, if I could describe them as that, looking at the figures and the way people speak about them, if you have 4 parties, maybe like, say, the NNPP, Labour Party, APC, PDP, you have different groups from different parts of the country who seem to see some rallying figure. So could that be part of the reason why it has come?
Obviously, that's one of the reasons. You know, it's not the one reason, one factor situation. But the fact that first the APC considered its candidacy to the south already removed a major element of tension. The PDP, in spite of disagreement which persists, still conducted because of the experience in doing so, a very credible convention. And so the 2 candidates have emerged. Fortunately, the 2 candidates have not shown that level of desperation we had in 2019, 2015, 2011.
There's a reason.
They have been in the field. They are veterans.
Some say because they're friends.
They are friends also. So, and where we find ourselves is head or tail you win, because it's government of the rich for the rich.
Well, it sounds like you're saying that there is no difference within the 2 leading parties.
No, there's no difference, of course. I'm like to tell you that. I mean, look at where Atiku is coming from. Atiku was PDP, APC, AC, now PDP.
What about the other 2? The other 2?
And, well, of course, we know Obi, Abga, PDP, Labour. Is there any difference? You think that if there's a difference, people can change so dramatically? No. We don't have strict ideological parties. What we have are collections and clubs for winning elections and power.
We'll come to that because I think that's very, very important,
Very important, yes.
especially talking about the internal politics and
Yes.
all. But to the dynamics that you spoke about the other time of, you know, how the elections are, you know, building up and the rest of it.
Yes.
How significant is the voting population that has increased by, I think, 12 million according to INEC?
Yes.
How significant is that in the build up to these elections?
No, but voting populations have always grown. It's a demographic reality. Populations grow every 4 years, so it doesn't matter whether it's 6 million or 12 million. I don't think that's a factor in the calmness and the pre-election stability that we have today.
So you don't see that playing any significant role in the impact of the elections or how people will respond?
No, it does play. I'm not dismissing it.
Okay.
I mean, but everything is always multifactorial. It's not one issue that will determine. I am very sure that first, the president is not returning. So there's no desperation for him to want to muzzle, you know. Then secondly, very critically, the APC was able to agree to shift power to the south. If that had not happened, we will not be where we are today. And so there are many factors that contributed to stabilizing the polity.
This calmness that you talk about,
Yes.
do you see it reflecting in the voter turnout? Because what we have seen over the years,
Yes.
just as you have said, voter register increases every 4 years.
Yes.
However, the
Turnout.
percentage of turnout decreases even with the increase.
Yes.
So do you see this calmness
Yes.
playing out in the turnout of
It
voters?
should be. I'm not in the business of soothsaying. It should be. It should increase it, because if people are not be scared of the voting booths, they should be able to come out. But one critical point, which I think you are driving at, is the digital factor,
The demographic of the
mobilization-
voters.
the mobilization that has taken place among young people. Just as people used the internet to mobilize revolutions in the Arab Spring, we're beginning to see that here, that the young people are mobilizing themselves through digital channels. And that is going to affect the turnout. There's no doubt that people will turn out. I expect that there will be more, the turnout will be greater in 2023 than ever before.
Just a moment, Jimmy.
Yes.
Also, if you would listen to our review guest the other time, was saying that while it is significant what you have said,
Yes.
the people who have hitherto been a researcher determined the outcome of the elections are not on social media, don't have digital devices and all of those things. So I'm wondering what your take is on that, most of the people who determine the outcomes, their interests are different.
There are other modes of mobilization. Parties mobilize, candidates mobilize. If you're a candidate, you want people to come out and vote for you. So there are other channels of mobilization. The additional and improved digital channel is going to make mobilization turnout to be a lot larger. And the calmness, if people are not scared of you, they don't think that if they get to the polling booth, they are going to run into hoodlums, or there will be violence or gunshots. They will come out and vote. And apart from that, there's a lot of dissatisfaction with governance in Nigeria today. People want change of a better, a government that focuses on their problems. Everything is not working. The people are getting poorer. There's nothing that we need. People think that a new government will change this. There's that hope eternal, that a new government, not necessarily a new party, but they're thinking that once there's a change of government, there's the likelihood that new policies, new programs, new projects will begin, and their lots will increase.
What is it, Prof, that we seem to gloss over or miss? Because when you speak about change or hope eternal, right from 1999, whenever it's 4 years, there's that enthusiasm, they're upbeat, they want to go in and get something different. People love the different things, really. But at the end of the day, after 4 or 8 years, there's always that despair that this is not what we thought it was going to be. What are we missing?
I hope you know that in the past, people have not obviously been allowed to express themselves properly. I'm not even sure that we have had any elections where the electorate actually chose. there's been so much manipulation, what we call rigging of elections, that we don't know whether it's the people that we wanted that got there. Well, we just got people elected. And apart from that, our political culture is still on the side of almost feudalism, aristocracy, autocracy, in which the president, the governor becomes an emperor. You have a constitution that gives all the power to the president and the governors. And the power corrupts, they say. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. So the governors do what they like. Governors control the treasury of the state. The president can appoint anybody, can spend any amount he wants, irrespective of even the budget. So it is leadership.
And National Assembly cannot seem to do anything about it
because they are also part of the cabal.
That speaks to me
Yes.
for the challenge of institutions over individuals.
Yeah.
The laws are strong and well. The laws are there,
Yes.
and seems to be very detailed and clear about some of the approach to some of these things. So if the laws are there and the institutions are there and the individuals are as strong as they are over the institutions, doesn't that in a way taper to what Chamberlain is talking about, what we're missing?
You see, there's certain areas of Nigerian discourse that is not controversial. Our institutions have not been allowed to work. You know, I think maybe it's Socrates or Aristotle, where there's no law, there's no sin. But in this case, where there's no implementation of the law, we have laws, but the laws are not followed. They are not, because the individuals override the laws. The governors override the laws. The rich override the laws. The powerful, even the violent hoodlum, overrides the law.
Does that make the system helpless?
Well, right now, what we are looking for is strategic leadership. Somebody who will see the totality of these problems and create policies and programs that will resolve them. We have not had that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll build a little further subsequently on when you spoke about how things got awry, maybe from time, maybe 1999, recent history till now. But let's get to Abuja. Mark has got some questions for you as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Chamberlain, and good morning, Prof. First, I was going to ask if there is a term in political science for when the electorate begins to seek change at the end of the administration of any government, as the case might be. You said that it could be a change of government, it could be a change of party, but generally, you know, people seek a change. Yes. Is that a phenomenon in political science?
Yes, well, it is. You know, I mean, parties do change their programs in response to the demand of the electorate. If you want to win elections, you have to listen to the voice of the people that you are going to vote for you. And that might affect the way you present yourself, might affect the programs that you prioritize, and so on. If it's a different party, yes, they will almost invariably sell themselves as bringing new ideas, better ideas, and they will want to do a better job because they know the next election round they will have something to explain. So there's no point at which a government cannot begin to change. My worry is that sometimes it's too late to change.
I was going to ask you if you would be kind enough to do like an analysis of the strengths of, say, the who you considered four major front runners. We know the PDP, we know the APC, but you know, you decide the last two political parties whom you might consider, you know, major contenders in this.
Well, we have three leading candidates. The Labour Party is the third force. The two major candidates are APC and PDP. They have been there since 1999. They have the structures and so on. Let me say that the Labour Party, exciting as it is unlikely to go very far in the presidential race. Because we are not even talking about Labour Party at senatorial. There is no Labour Party at House of Assembly. They have no governor. They have no local government council. Those are the elements of manipulation, of mobilization, of administration of elections. So if you don't have all those levels, those structures, they call it structures, and I know that people have been gloating about what happened in Kenya. It's not easy for it to happen that way. You need to have the governors to be on your side. You have to have 2 or 3 who can bankroll your election. You have to have local government chairmen and so on. I think it's a federal momentum that they have. As we put it, it is there in the air. I'm not sure that it's grounded in the grassroots. Between Atiku and Tinubu, I see a problem. Ordinarily, those two should not be the people who want to rule us, but they are the ones who emerge from the democratic process. And if you are asking me to assess their prospects, Tinubu has an albatross. The albatross is that he cannot criticize government. He cannot say, I'm going to change policies. He cannot say, the policies I'm going to pursue is going to be better than, because he's going to alienate the president, alienate the cabal, alienate the powerful people in his party, and jeopardize his electoral chances. So what is he going to say to us? Atiku's campaign has no identity. Unfortunately, it has no identity that can galvanize us. It's the same, I will change electricity, I will privatize NNPC. We have had that before. What is it that you are going to do for us? So, but if you want me to balance it, I think that Atiku has the best of the chances. Why? Because politics in Nigeria is not about ideology. I can see him mobilizing the votes in the north. Blood is thicker than water. I can see him succeeding fairly in the southeast, which is a PDP territory. I don't see Tinubu doing that. If Atiku should take the north over and above Tinubu and take the southeast, and even struggle to take some of the southwest, that's the danger. And I don't trust that a lot of the people who are now claiming to be supporters in the north will not go back to your tent, O Israel. So that's why the chances of Tinubu are slightly less than that of Atiku.
I'm looking at some of the analysis that the papers have done this morning. I do not know if you have seen it as well. I think it was leadership newspapers that had that particular headline, something along the lines of Nigerians seek competence above party, religious, ethnic considerations. As a political scientist, what's your first reading of that particular headline? Well, that's it. That's what we want. There's no dispute. There are many things in which we do not dispute. That's why Peter Obi is attractive. That's why I see him as a good motivational speaker who has been able to mobilize us to say, this is how government should be run, and this is how I want to run it. But at the same time, it's in we are dealing with a democracy. We are dealing with theory and practice of democracy. In a democracy, you have to have structures to mobilize people to go and vote for you. On the election day, you will need about 5 or 6 people who will be your agents, your observers, your this thing. You have to pay for it. What you find that if you are a weak party, people are going to buy up your agents and they will look the other way or walk away from the polling booth. So we definitely have used the word strategic leadership. That's what we are looking for. Somebody who will propel us into the second, second world, not first world. We can't get there immediately. We thought we were going to get there because Okojo-Iweala told us that if they are persistent with the policies of Obasanjo, we would have been in the second world, one of the 10 leading economies in the world in 10 years. But we aborted that. We didn't continue with the policies. We took all the money from the reserves, and so we are back to square one. We are even owing more than we were owing in 1999. So we need that kind of leadership. And so when people say that's what Nigerians want, we will not want that. That's what we want.
But Prof,
but how do we get it?
Can we afford to underrate the candidature of the NNPP, Kwankwaso? Because, I mean, if he, as they say, they will go the whole hog, they're not aligning with anybody. Because in the last governorship elections, he held his own, his party. His candidate, actually, they took the election to a second ballot between his candidate, who many considered an underdog at the time, and the incumbent governor, who they actually say he won, but eventually second ballot, the governor swung, but it wasn't easy. And now he's from there. So, and given the way they vote, because you have many people who will tell you, what determines victory at elections, they are not those kind of things that you see and you can easily say this is what's going to happen. Yes. So, with his candidature, it could be a different dynamics up there, up north, because if he holds sway in Kano, and then win several other positions or several other votes across board, what happens?
If he wins in Kano. So Kano is not Nigeria.
It's all if for all of them at this point. For all of them.
For Tinubu and Atiku.
It's still a big if for both of them.
It's not if at all. It is, the probability is high that either of them will win. But when you talk about Obi and Kwankwaso, they are talking of people who are building new structures. As parties that have been there for 23 years, that have standing structures. So Kwankwaso can mobilize a lot in Kano. And don't forget that Shekarau, who is also a mobilizer in Kano, has moved away from him to... so he has to share Kano with APC and with PDP, with Shekarau and Ganduje. So if he wins 1/3, even let's say win 50% of Kano, where is he going to win again? I mean, the people are sitting there, the governors are waiting for you as a candidate. They are the ones who manipulate the system. The chairmen of local governments are keeping their allocation for the month or two.
But the interesting thing about that is when they say the governors, yeah, they may control the party structure and things like that. But how do we throw in the biometric voting system of INEC into this equation? Yes. They all have one vote. So if that system, as INEC has said it, is as straightforward as many say it is, there's a limit to manipulations from those guys.
Well, unfortunately, INEC may be able to do a lot of theoretical things, but you see,
theoretical,
biomedical, and all this. But you see, the practical thing. I'm talking from some experience of having participated in several elections. I'm praying that Nigeria will change to the point that we will be able to say that this man who we declared as the winner is actually the sources of election rigging is not at INEC's desk. It is before it gets to INEC. What do you do about biometrics when you have underage children in their millions voting? When you have people who you do not see for religious reasons voting, and you don't know how many of them. What is biometrics? You know, biometrics will work up to a point, but those who are determined to frustrate the system have avenues for doing it. So even when you transmit electronically and all those things, what are you transmitting? It's like the elementary computer statement of garbage in, garbage out. It's what you put in that you get out.
Is it a choice on our part that, you know, what you just mentioned now, which we've heard for many years?
Yes.
Is it a choice to continue to allow this?
No. Has it been substantiated in the first place?
That what?
That there's underage voting, because times that many try to interrogate it, they always met a brick wall.
Well, let's pray that it's not substantiated. But what we see, the pictures we see, a picture says 1,000 words. We have seen it before. We have seen people tampering. We have seen all kinds of things. If you turn your eye away from them, in some areas, riggers are protected by the system. Okay. How many policemen do you have? In any case, if you get your budget to include the police and all those who regulate, you get away with anything. So I'm hoping that we will have, I have a feeling that we'll have a better election. Because part of this calmness and optimistic environment that has been created is that we've seen incumbents lose election in Edo State, in Osun State. That is a good development for us, that the party in power did not rig those elections and INEC did not cooperate to rig the election. Okay. So we are hoping that that will be a national thing, not a local partial commitment.
Talking about parties,
yes.
What's your take on these various levels of internal party wranglings that we have playing here and there? Yeah. On the front page of one of the papers this morning, you mentioned about 2 or 3 political parties having internal wranglings that are quite significant. Only maybe just 2 of them are as prominent as they are, the APC, the PDP, and the rest of them. But what's your take on that, and how is that likely to affect the entire process in the build-up?
Not the entire process. It affects the party that is not putting its act together. Let me say something that is a usual thing. Parties get into these altercations immediately after primaries. Because everybody has come with ambitions. You want to be governor. If you notice, people are shifting from one party. Once they don't get what they want, they think they will move. They will go from PDP and become governorship candidate in Labour Party or ADP or some other party. There's always that tension because people struggle for these positions, and they struggle because they are thinking only of the rewards. They're not going to serve. Oh, that's all. And the rewards
so the winner takes all still plays a huge
They know it's winner take all. If they don't win, then even within their party, the winner will not recognize their supporters. So they fight to the end.
We'll explore that a little bit more. And even though you're not so optimistic about the voting system, but we'll attempt to take a further look at that and perhaps underscore or highlight some other expectations from that system when we return in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are with Professor Femi Otunbanjo, who is a political scientist. He's a public policy analyst, and he is also a professor of international politics and security studies, Nigerian Institute of International Affairs in Lagos. Prof, when you say that there isn't that much tension, it appears calm, and then some suggest that, wait a minute, couldn't that be because the last elections, you had retired generals who were angling, trying to get a particular position. So they didn't have the culture or the tenets of democracy per se. So they didn't understand all of those democratic tenets and ethos. It wasn't part of them. So that may have contributed largely. But now you have, they're not generals, as it were, politicians. So they seem to be playing the game. Could that count for anything?
Yes, it does. As I keep saying, it's a multifactorial thing. We will know that there was also regional tension when Buhari was coming in. There was some suggestion of this Ajaokuta syndrome. That was the turn of the North to produce power, and Jonathan insisted on running. So that already created that tension that was bigger than just the campaign. It was a regional preparation for war. We have to have power. The North has been out for too long, we have suffered for too long, so we need it now. So, and of course, the second term of Buhari, also, like you said, General does not want to lose an election. And so there's that determination. And Atiku, a civilian general in his own right in election matters, was also there. And we don't know what happened. But the truth of the matter, we don't have the same scenario now. We have seasoned politicians, and we pray that the generals will not come back, so that we can move to civilian politics.
But don't we have a typology of this tension you speak about, it's my turn, in different political parties today?
Yes.
Don't we have it?
We have tension, but they do not amount to a national threat. That's the point.
It's just within the party.
It's just within the party, within the region, and so on. And once they have, if you go through the states, once you have finished their primaries, or the conventions, the winner settles down to reconcile with the other people.
Prof, I'd like you to analyze something for us. You've spoken about strong individuals in the political parties. You've spoken about strong individuals in the polity all over the place. I'd like you to, if possible, or if you can, dig deep into the structures that are supposed to hold political parties, the institutions that are supposed to hold political parties as opposed to the individuals.
Yes.
Many would reference the US Democrats and Republicans, and they will not be able to reference one individual, but they will reference the parties and the structures that hold it. And, you know, perhaps such examples all over the place.
Except until recently, maybe Mr. Trump.
Well, Trump is an exception to the rule, so to speak. But what's your, how do we get back to that? There are those who have pointed to the fact that, look, hitherto, in previous, republics, we've had strong political parties
yes,
as opposed to strong individuals in those political parties,
yes,
as close as the Third Republic of the 90s.
Yes.
So,
well, you see, the interesting thing was that the leaders of the First Republic were tutored democratically by the people that handed over power to them. And they had a democratic mindset and left and were willing to work with people and to use the best brains. You know that Ahmadu Bello, for example, left almost nothing. Balewa created Victoria Island. He did not have a plot of land in Victoria Island. We now began to monetize politics. And that started with the military. There was so much freedom of stealing. No repercussions. We have in our Senate today at least 12 people who are on trial and who are still sitting in Senate. And so we have lost that structured value system that we even inherited from our first leaders. Our leaders now are the ones who begin the process, who are the catalysts of armed robbery in our governments. And once they do that, the institution is irrelevant. What institution that will stand a governor? If he appoints you as accountant general and you don't release money, he removes you and puts somebody else. He has that power to remove you. Our constitution has given so much power to the executive that actually no control. Even the courts now have said that the EFCC has no right to investigate state governors. That the states should go and establish their own economic crime institutions. If you establish a police economic crime institution in a state, given the power, the resources available to governors, what do you think they will do to it? Undermine the system in their own interest. So we have returned to feudalism. We are just a pseudo-democracy.
Well, many argue in that case. Some had said at the time that if AFCC keeps going after the governors,
yes,
why can't they go after a president? The presidents too are allocated money like states.
Yes.
So why investigate only states? You don't investigate the president.
That's the point.
The president must also be investigated because that's where he should start from, as a matter of fact.
Yes. Well, I would like to think that if you know what is going on with Trump, and there's almost some kind of unwritten law that presidents are immune, even when they leave power. Or else, our ex-presidents should at least tasted EFCC, if not jail.
Oh dear.
Yes.
We don't know if we sign up for that kind of democracy. We wanted the democracy here.
Yes.
But Prof,
yes,
now that we've seen the PDP, the APC,
yes,
internal wranglings among them, 23 days to the elections, are these
to the beginning of
campaigns? To the campaigns beginning, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Are these going to play any role whatsoever in how they fare ultimately?
Yes, it will, if those conflicts are not resolved. For example, if you take the PDP, I'm just alarmed at the fact that they are quarreling about the chairmanship. Let me tell you something. The PDP has 6 positions that it shares among the zones. The president, vice president, president of Senate, House of Representatives Speaker, national chairman, and the secretary to government. Now, they are telling... Yes.
That's when they win elections, right?
Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make. You see, that is when you win elections. I don't know why they will now want you to leave when you have no president. There's no provision for you to leave for a presidential candidate. What if Atiku loses the election?
No, I thought they said they are building on what he said himself.
Yeah, that's
that if a candidate emerges, I will sacrifice and do everything possible to make sure there's peace.
At the expense of being seen to be arrogant, I think he made an error. It was an error on his part. He did not recognize his own advantages. It is a moral commitment. It is not a legal constitutional obligation. He has no obligation to leave.
So should he then say, okay, look, my hands are up. I made an error. It was an error, but I will not go.
No,
as opposed to say
he doesn't have to go until if Atiku wins the election.
But there are those who also
then his position will be untenable because we will now have the, he would have taken the share of one zone, which he has to relinquish.
But there are those who also list a number of positions in the party.
Yes.
The chairman of the BOT,
Yes.
the chairman, the national chairman,
Yes.
and a number of other key posts within the political party itself as coming from one region and pretty much, you know, ostracizing the other.
No.
It's informed what Chief Body George said, that, look, it is the right of the South to have to be in position as chairman.
That is if the president comes from the North. Not presidential candidate.
But he didn't give that condition.
That is because they are not making the appropriate distinction. We don't have a president yet. The 6 positions in the PDP are for elective positions, the positions, public offices. We don't have it. So if Atiku wins the election from the North, then Ayu will not have any leg to stand. But Atiku is just a candidate. And so those who are asking Ayu to leave are on a weak wicket. They don't have, they are standing on straws.
So what then is the argument?
Eh?
You know, what then is the argument for those, because they are holding very strongly to it, as you know?
Unfortunately, strongly to the wrong thing. Well, you can hold strongly to Hitler held on to Nazism and the superiority of the Aryan races. Where did it lead him? You can hold on to, you can have 1 million, you can have 1 trillion people supporting the wrong thing. It doesn't make it right.
But it seems quite, sorry, Chairman, it seems quite significant that the other side is insisting that this happens or else they're going to work against the party.
That is the problem. The question you ask me is, what effect would they have? If they can quickly collect themselves and see the falsehood of their position and reconcile. Why? I mean, Wike is insisting on that. Why?
Okay, well, winding down now, what about the APC themselves?
The APC does not have the same kind of problem. They don't. They had the problem of vice president, same fate vice president, but they have simply moved on from that.
Well,
they don't have the same
it appears that they moved on because you still have people who feel, look, in my constituency, I have 60, 70, 80% Christians.
Yes.
So how am I going to go in and market this? Because already they feel alienated from the emergence of the flag bearers already.
You must operate on the basis of balances. If you are going to deal with 100 people, you will never expect 100 people to be on your side. That's why elections are won on the basis of 50.1%. That constitutes majority. So if you have people who are against you, you are just going to pray, and that has been calculated in the choice. You are going to look at the balance. Where do I get my votes from? How many votes will I lose if I take a Muslim? And would I lose so much vote? I am sure that the votes that APC will lose in the Southwest will be next to nothing on the basis of religion, because that's not something that we take to heart. And that you will find that in many places, and you will get an advantage in the Northwest as a result of that choice, and maybe in the Northeast. So it is not, you cannot have everybody on your side at any given time. What you want on your side is that you have majority.
On a final note, if I could, is it pedestrian to say or think that whichever way this election goes, the North wins? Because you have a vice presidential candidate of APC from the North, you have a presidential candidate from the North in PDP, you have a vice presidential candidate from the Labour Party, you have a presidential candidate from NNPP in the North.
Yeah, so have you forgotten that there was a time we had presidential candidate, vice presidential candidate, all from the South? Was Jonathan not presidential candidate? Was Oshibajo not? What has that got to do with anything? Let's forget this North-South issue. In the terms of the sharing of public offices, it will always end up like that.
But when we say let's forget about it, but our reality is that...
But don't forget, the North has not won yet. They have not won the presidency yet.
Yeah, I'm saying that whichever way it goes, they will have a huge say in the whole thing.
Yes.
So when we say, we keep saying, let's forget about it. In fact, many have said, remove state of origin from this, remove religion from this. But if you look at our national effigy, if you look at all those things there, it's right there in our faces. But we keep saying, let's forget about it. So are we taking certain steps to make sure we forget about those things?
Yeah, and we are hoping that whoever becomes president will not be regionally focused. He will not be thinking in terms of north-south. We've first seen, even under the military, under Babangida and the rest of them, there were balances, positions were shared. So it's not that we have an aberration now that will be corrected by any new regime.
How confident are you on that on the final note? Because
you
think
that if Tinubu becomes president, he will put all Yoruba people in positions?
There are those who also argue for the relevance of the Southeast in all of these. Because
let me tell you, again, thank you for raising the Southeast. That's why I was worried about Wike's insistence. Wike has been fighting in the party and disrupting the peace of PDP because he lost, because he wanted a Southern presidential candidate.
Southern, not South-South.
No, that's the umbrella of it. Having installed a Northern, having supported the installation of a Northern chairman, believing that because of his mighty resources, he will now swing the president to his side. But you see, if he wants to be fair in terms of equity, we should be fighting for the Southeast. The last president from the PDP was from the South-South. So I don't see that.
I think Atiku at that time said, if we zone into the Southeast, he will step down.
Well, but they didn't.
Before
all
the
of them
primaries
forget about what they say. Sometimes you think that politicians drink a lot of all kinds of things. When they say something today, they say another. Forget about what they say. Forget about them being held by the rules, by the laws, by the Constitution. That's only when you can catch a politician, not his promises. After all, do they promise us that they will do this, do that? Where are we today?
But that's what they're going to be doing.
You ask everybody, are you better off than in 2019? Are you better off than 2015? But what did they tell us that they were going to do? Make us, give us a better country.
So wait, what should determine how we vote in 2023?
Well, quite honestly, to be honest with you, I hope that we can all vote for the young man Obi. I wish we can all vote for him and get strategic leadership. But we will not do that. We will not vote for him. The older people are not likely to, and they are the majority. It's part of the...
No, the older people?
In terms of the voting, the people in the rural areas and all, they are not good. They don't know.
No, I think the figures for mine, I stand corrected, though, is between 18 and 34.
Yeah.
Those are not the rural areas.
No, I'm saying that in terms of those who actually go out to vote.
Oh.
Those who have the patience to go out to vote.
Not those who are registered, not the demographic of the registers.
I didn't vote in the last two elections. I have my card.
I think it's a challenge. Let's see if those
so mobilize the people
young
to vote
people
and see whether they can get a new leadership that is thinking of a modern Nigeria, not the old ones who have been coming, who are there for 40, 50 years. You know, some of them cannot even manage a laptop.
I have a feeling young people will say, okay, you people want to try us, right?
Yes.
We're going to show you.
We'll see what happens. We'll see. We'll show you why we're those the highest
that's where we
in that register.
Try to push the young people to get the candidate they want.
Because it's their
because the future is theirs, and they have the right to be the one to elect it. But we are in a democracy. So it is not something that will be given to them. It's something that they have to work for.
A fine place to live. Professor Femi Otobanjo is a public policy analyst, he's a political scientist and a professor of international politics and security studies at Nigeria Institute of International Affairs. Thank you very much indeed, Prof.
Thank you very much.
We're back in a moment. Don't go away.
A distress call from the building collapse scene in the dead of the night. The second in Lagos in the space of 2 weeks. Eyewitnesses told emergency management officials that 6 people who slept at the uncompleted building might be trapped at the 3rd floor. And that's the information these officials are banking on.
We discovered that the building has been sealed by the relevant government agency, which is Building Controlling Agency. Now, we gathered information that 6 people were trapped inside. We've not received any family's member, But however, there is a gentleman that I think is part of the people that are working in here that gave us information, and we are relying on that information.
There's a clear marking that reads sealed at the entrance of the site, but the resident who preferred to remain anonymous says work never stopped at the site, adding that he had even called the attention of a state agency to some infractions but got no feedback. One clear infraction we also noticed is no signage indicating name of contractors, engineers, or any other information to trace the developer.
Yes, truly the site information has to be displayed, but that is not within the purview of emergency responders. The supervisors and the coordinating agency supposed to take appropriate action on this lack of information, because that board is supposed to display a lot of information, the safety precautions on anything, but that is not within us. It's within the regulatory bodies. Third floor was where all of them are supposed to be located. So the two people that were recovered on that third floor.
As emergency management officials continue to work at the building collapse scene, they received another distress call. Fire erupted at the three-story building just 3 streets away from the building collapse site. Proximity of emergency workers at the scene saved the day, averting what could have been another disaster. Dare Ido, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Well, yes, we've got two gentlemen joining us to take a look at our next focus. Mr. Eddie Atumoyogo is the National President, Building Collapse Prevention Guild. He's also the past president of Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, when I see President Building Collapse Prevention Guild, and then when a building goes down, what goes through your mind? Is it that, oh dear, we failed again? What exactly? Because there are different stages of all of these things.
Yeah. First of all, it has happened again. And then there are several things that happen before you can see a building collapse. There's always some collapse before the building. Building collapse is just a manifestation of several collapses.
Some collapse before the eventual collapse.
Exactly. The very first collapse is collapse of values. People don't just respect professionalism. They think that building sector is just an all-commerce sector. Everybody can just come in and do whatever they want to do. But there are processes and procedures for procuring buildings. And so when such processes and procedures are not followed, eventually it will lead to a collapse.
Is there also a collapse of monitoring or other processes of government, or collapse of obedience to the rules of the game?
There are several. It starts with the clients, because the client is the one, or the developer, is the one that sets the tone for the whole building procurement process. Just like you want to hire a driver. You don't want to hire a learner driver. You don't want to hire a driver who doesn't have the experience or the kind of vehicle you want him to drive. So when a developer hires an inexperienced or quacks to handle designs of building, of course it will collapse.
But you know, why some of these things are just, many people can't relate with it. Is some, even though it's not right, think that, well, if it's a bungalow, if it's a duplex, if it's a 3-story building, something, they could do certain things in different ways. But when it's a 7-story building, in fact, 4 days before that time, there was a tweet by some persons who saw it, laymen, who are not professionals. They thought, look, they were calling the attention of the authorities that something is wrong here. This, if not checked, is going to collapse. And that was just someone who's a layman, who is not any professional, who saw that. So how then is it that the regulatory bodies, the professionals, didn't even see it?
No, that building was flagged. In fact, that building was sealed in February this year by the Physical Planning ministry.
And somehow they continued.
They continued. Even the commissioner was expressing his helplessness yesterday on television, that they came with police, and the man had his own policemen. Oh. And so they refused enforcement. So that's what I'm talking about, collapse of values. The policemen of the developer resisted the policemen of the ministry. So if the ministry that is empowered to monitor and regulate what is going on is being resisted from carrying out their functions, then what are we going to do?
I'm confused. So we have a state, the authorities, who were supposed to permit the building to happen and control the entire process, being resisted that the person who was given permit or authority is like a child saying to the father, I'm not going to allow you to enter your house.
Let me shock you. That building has no permits. It doesn't have any permits. He applied for permit, but he has not been granted permit, and he was building. And then when it was flat, and the state came to seal the place, he continued construction. And then when the state came with law backing them, they were resisted. So that's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of impunity going on. And the reason is because people are not being punished for gaming the system, for neglecting building laws. When they get away with it, then they will just keep on repeating the bad behavior.
These kind of things are very heartbreaking, listening to them and then see what's happening, because there's several questions, from different places. You ask the state authorities, what did they do about it? Because those policemen, were literally violating and just sticking it in the face of the state government, because there were state agents who went there to enforce the ban, the stop work order, and they? Or was it just professionals?
No. It's the state agents. The same thing happened when the General Road collapse happened. The man had his own police. The same scenario. So we're talking about, before you see a building collapse, that's why I said there are a lot of collapse that happens along the path.
Well, there are different levels. Again, now, assuming that those things, keep happening, these themselves, do they do anything? Because if your colleagues are found in those kind of scenarios, isn't there a means or a measure to sanction them such that people will know and say, no, this person here, who is supposed to be, quote unquote, maybe a structural engineer or something, has been flagged by his professional colleagues, so I can't afford to touch him from a distance?
Okay, speaking for the Institution of Structural Engineers, till date, no member of the institution has been involved in any building collapse. Now, Coren is empowered to punish engineers who, produce faulty design and lead to collapse. All right? But it's not just faulty design that causes collapse. At times, it could be monitoring. It could be non-adherence to professional advice by the developers. They just neglect advice and just do whatever they want to do. It could be issue of not having comprehensive soil tests. So there are a gamut of causes of building collapse, not just from the professional side.
Is there something that your guild could have done to prevent this?
The only thing our guild, what we normally do, really, is to flag. We have a platform where Lagos state government officials are also part of the platform, and those that take decisions concerning the procedures are in that platform. So we flag a lot of buildings. And when we flag it, we expect the Lagos state government officials to visit such sites and make sure that the right thing is done.
How frequently has that happened, and what have been the result? I know we need to go to Abuja to talk to the other guys, but how frequently has that happened, and what have been the result?
That has been going on. That has been going on. But the problem is that even Lagos state government does not have the manpower, the required manpower. There was a time we carried out a study, and we found out there were about 55,000 construction sites. Out of that 55,000 construction sites, only 20% had one form of professional or the other involved. Now, the whole of Lagos state staff, not just the Ministry of Physical Planning, cannot even monitor such construction sites. So
what does that mean? The other
80%
had no professionals involved?
No professionals involved.
Out of 55,000
sites. And so we have been on this case of collaboration with Lagos state government, because we have members in every LCD in Lagos. And we are willing to deploy such members to help Lagos state to monitor, all these buildings. And then we have been on this collaborative effort to collaborate with them so that they can empower, because you can't just visit people's sites and begin to enforce when you don't have the law backing you. But there has been this dragging of feet over the years, and it's leading to more collapse because they don't have the manpower to do this.
But wait a minute. Why is it that 55,000 sites, only 20% have professionals? Is it that professionals price themselves out of being, called upon to do the job or what?
No, because developers prefer to go and patronize monkeys.
Why?
Because they don't want to pay the fees.
Are the fees too exorbitant?
And not exorbitant. At the end of the day, when you invite monkeys, you get bananas. That's exactly what's happening. So that's why I said there is a collapse of values. And until we get back to doing the right thing, it's not a question of will it collapse, it's just when will it collapse.
Mark.
Well, Chamberlain, some really scandalous revelations coming from the studios there in Lagos. But it's so sad to note that as in Lagos, so also it is here in Abuja and even in Kano, which we saw about 5 days ago. Let me quickly introduce our guest here. Engineer Peter Osarajon Igbini-Jesu is the president, Nigeria Institution of Structural Engineers, which is a division of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. And he is also a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers and fellow Institution of Structural Engineers. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Really, really hard to swallow some of the things that we have heard, because this is not a case of it wasn't seen. It was seen. The regulators were there. They sealed the building. The people involved refused to comply. They even resisted the officials who came with, the law enforcement agents. So the question is, what else should we be doing? Because everything which we would normally recommend, or people should raise an alarm if they see something, say something, almost every single box has been ticked. Yet, 2 people have been left dead as a result of this building collapse.
It is a total negligence on the part of those who are involved in the process. And the fears we are expressing is that even though you flag such buildings, and you carry out the necessary procedures to enforce the law that there's no continuity. But because of the stubbornness in us, once you turn your back, you see the work going on. So we need to be persistent. We need to be constantly persistent to ensure, because people who come to work on such sites are not inside that building. They come from different locations, they move in. If we are consistent and persistent in enforcement, I'm sure what happened will not have happened. So we need, as individuals and even as a community, let us all get involved in all this. Look, your building has been flagged. You cannot continue work. You are bringing danger to our environment. If we all cooperate in this and insist that there will be no activity on this side until the normal thing is done, then we'll just have to. Well, so we need to be consistent.
Cooperation certainly hasn't happened in this instance. And whoever owns the building, it is interesting that in this instance, even though the reporter, showed that there was no signboard, nothing notifying who the engineers were, who the owners of the building were, etc., because there has been some attempt at enforcement, the authorities cannot claim that they do not know the people who own this particular building. Right. So we should be expecting to see some action, especially with regards to the loss of lives on the owners of this particular property. Is that certainly something that you support?
Yes.
What sort of action should we be looking to see?
Because what we will do is that in the process, because as you heard, they must have submitted their building plans for approval. So we know who the developer is, and we know who are the professionals who were involved, because the records are there. What we can do is that if their names have not been displayed, but from their submission, we can get those data. And those people should be held capable, and we should hold them responsible for this incident. And in the process whereby the building was planned and they continued work, then the onus is on government that, look, we have your records, because these are the people you brought to us that were involved in this design and supervision of this project. We can reach them, even though as law provides that the name should be displayed on the notice board, but they were not. But the records through the submission of their documents to the approving authorities, we can get those facts and we pursue them. Very, very.
Well, I did say, I mean, oftentimes there's always a lot of focus on Lagos, and rightly so, because, I mean, you heard your colleague there in Lagos, he said 55,000 active sites. That's quite a lot happening. But Lagos is not the only place, and Lagos does seem to be doing something about it anyway.
Yes.
What is happening here in Abuja? Only a few days ago, we heard the building collapse in Kubwa.
Yes.
And, you know, it was, let's say the silence was loud on the part of those who ought to have been speaking up as to what exactly happened at that particular site.
Yes, because that particular site was so unfortunate that it was a case of change in use. Because apparently what that structure was meant for was not what was being, it was being developed for a completely change in use of that building. And it's so unfortunate, as you rightly said, there were some fatalities. We just pray that they are so rest in peace. What we are saying is that there are procedures. If you are going to embark on any, originally you have a structure made for this purpose, engage the services of professionals to ensure that, look, I want to convert the use of my building to, in the case of Kubwana, a warehouse to a residential.
Was it a warehouse? I think it was a complex.
A complex, a mall.
Those are the visuals now.
Okay.
Those are the visuals for the Abuja one.
Yes, it is. It is a mall, and it's going to be converted to residential apartment. Yes. There are procedures. As you rightly said, the approving authorities will always rely on your submission to be able to go through what you have submitted to them. And we say that they can engage the services of professionals in case they don't have the capacity to cross-check whatever submissions they receive. And in the process of building, have competent people supervising those jobs. And as we always say, negligence can come from anywhere, either in the process of design or in the process of construction. So we need to really get everybody involved. And the advocacy we are pursuing now is that as professionals, there's a little we can do, because we need to also involve all our colleagues in the built environment to come into it.
I was just about to say, you know, what's happening, because these building collapses, they're happening too close to each other. Yes, there was a big, well, it would seem that the industry was shaken when we had the Koyi building collapse. That was really scandalous, especially considering where it happened and, you know, the work that was involved and the message is sent to foreign investors, etc. But these collapses we have been hearing have been happening in quick succession. It was just, you know, last week we heard that of Kubwa. 5 days ago we heard that of Kano. Lagos has now recorded another one. Shouldn't your association, you know, be coordinating and be, will I say associations now,
the professional bodies, yes.
Yes, be calling an emergency meeting to say we need to do something about this?
We'll be doing that, and that's why we're going to rely on you people in the media outfit too, to also collaborate with us. We'll be doing that. For us as an institution in the structural engineers, we've made some proposals, because the government agency responsible for the regulation of engineering, COREN, we've approached them that there's the need to regulate the practice of structural engineering. And we are looking forward to seeing that one coming through, and because that one will give us more power, you understand, to enforce what is supposed to, and it will give developers the need that there's the need to engage the services of professionals when you want to embark on projects. So that's just what we are just waiting for. And before that is done, on our own, within ourselves in the built and with all the various professionals, we try as much as possible to advise, let us practice in our area of core competence. There's no need for me as a structural engineer want to express that I have knowledge, irrespective of the experience I have. Engage the services of others, the architects, the electrical, the mechanical, or everybody involved, because it's a family thing. So that collectively we should be able to reduce this time. But by now we're hoping that the incidences of collapse in this country will have been reduced, but it appears there's no sign to the end of it. But one day we'll get it, but collectively we have to.
What about the state regulatory authorities?
Yes.
Here in Abuja, I'm not even certain if there is a building control.
There is.
Is there one? How
yes,
active
that's what
are they?
the popular one you call. That's what you call the Development Control Office.
Okay.
There is in the municipal area of Abuja, Abuja Management Development Agency, and they have a department responsible for this. And the procedure is not, because even before you start, you know, first of all, what is the purpose of the land use? Secondly, what type of structure are you putting in there? Then thirdly, have you been able to carry out all the necessary field work? And it is when you collate all the data from your field work, which all the professionals will use to give you a design that can withstand whatever condition that the soil will be able to bear. So there's a regulatory agency in Abuja, and it's popularly known as Development Control Office. They are. Yes.
And how active are they?
They are active, because if you go around cities, especially sites that are being developed, because the procedure is that for every stage of your development, you are supposed to contact them, you know, seek their approval before you go to the next stage. So they are active, at least from the structures or buildings our members are involved in. They are active, and we are collaborating with them. But what we say, as I said earlier on, if your capacity in your office, if, for instance, they bring a complex structure, and you know that the staff you have may not be experienced enough to vet the submission you have received, we've always pleaded with them that you can outsource the personnel. You can involve people who are experienced to carry out this check for you, so that whatever observations you make, they can be named on the board. It's very necessary.
Your colleague spoke about how, you know, your members of your organizations are almost everywhere.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
How are you leveraging on that? And would you say that here in Abuja there is sufficient awareness to be able to get the attention of development control authorities where,
of course,
where the need arises?
Yes, we are very much on ground, and everywhere we are. You understand? So, even the BCPG, which is spoken, they are everywhere. Even as an institution, we have branches everywhere. Even the one that happened in Kano, we sent our members there. But one thing we can do is that we try as much as possible. We are limited. You understand? So that is why I spoke about empowering us as an institution with core and passing the regulation for the practice of structural engineering. There and there, we can go further than what we are doing now. Not only going there to just observe, but we'll collaborate to ensure that the proper things are done, the right professionals are involved, and we proceed.
Let me flip this back to Lagos now. Gentlemen.
Well, yes, indeed, Makwaya, and actually it will be a very, I think at this point, the Lagos State government officials have just got to speak up about some of these things, because if narratives coming through, not really encouraging. If you have several building sites, 55,000 of them still trying to deal and internalize that, and only 20% of them have professionals. That's if that's not a red flag, I don't know what it is. But is there any indication from you, from what you've seen, that perhaps we are, say, this may not happen again? Is there any hope whatsoever? Because the pictures are really grim out there.
Of course, we have to be very hopeful. We have made some proposals to Lagos State government. There are three key things we want them to do. The first one is when buildings are 3 floors and above, they should appoint external design reviewers, experts in structural engineering who will review these buildings, because there's something we call the fourth eye principle. A fourth eye will look at the whole thing and see whether there are issues with the design, so that at least you can tick that the design is good. Secondly, is to collaborate. They don't have the manpower to monitor all the sites in Lagos. They need the professionals to collaborate with them. We have made a proposal that we are ready to collaborate with them, but they need to empower us with law, back us with law, so that our members can enter any site, check what is going on, and then be able to flag to them to take action. And the second thing we'll mention to them is
that they will stick to the rules and not demand some sort of gratification from persons, because we hear that story in different places.
That is another issue. And that's why I talk about values, because if developers take responsible actions, we will not be having all this collapse. Number one, appoint the right professionals. Number two, obey the fiscal planning laws. Number 3, don't compromise the authorities. Number 4, don't use substandard materials. If you take all these responsible actions, then we can begin to see a decline.
We got this, thing, kind of some information from Brookings Institute talking about estate intel, and they list something in the region of, quite a significant number of building collapses over the past 10 years or thereabouts. But for instance, they listed that in 2011 we had the highest number of collapsed buildings in Lagos, 19. But hitherto, it's been on a gradual, decline down through the years, until last year, where we had just 3 collapses. 2020 we had just 2, perhaps because of the lockdown. But this year we seem to have about, say, 3 or 4 already. So one is wondering exactly what could be responsible for this decline, and it would seem as if the figures are rising again. What did we get right in 2011 until 2021, and what have we begun to lose?
Okay. In 2011, there was a massive collapse. The synagogue building collapsed, and people died, both nationals and international people. And then the Building Collapse Prevention Guild, in fact, that was when we rose up. We had a panel that investigated that collapse and came up with an expert report. And with that report, they were able to begin prosecution of the culprits. The case is still in court. But that collapse was so massive, and our report was so incisive, that people now began to, do the right thing. But the Nigerian thing, when something happens, everybody wants to do the right thing. When, after some time, the bad behavior will just kick in. So that's what I'm talking about, change of attitude, and also enforcement of laws.
Well, it's not all Nigerians. There are many Nigerians who will always do the right thing all the time.
Yeah, some Nigerians. I'm not saying, in every society you have the good, the bad, the ugly. Even in advanced societies you have the same thing. Yeah. But the issue is that the law will not allow that bad behavior to manifest. So we need to enforce our laws. From that 2011, nobody has gone to jail up to now. Prosecution is still on. Lekki Garden came and happened. Also, BCPG investigated, came out with an expert report, and then, nobody was prosecuted, but at least there was a kind of a deal, and people were able to pay, those that died and all sorts of things. So after some time, when people notice that laws, nobody has gone to jail, of course, the bad people will come up again. If they see that they can get away with some things, they will continue in that trend. So that's why impunity rose again, and that's why we're having a rise in building collapse.
Is there a role for the people in all of these? I know that people are not professionals and all. There are those who would also want to get one, Nkechi or Emeka or Ali somewhere to go, do some stuff for them in the rural areas because of what Chamberlain mentioned the other time, exorbitant professional fees. But is there a role for the people?
Possibly.
Okay, possible. But he's here. I mean, he would validate.
There are no exorbitant professional fees.
Well, there are fees, and hey, if you consider that you're going to buy X amount of... Anyway, that's not the question. The question is there a role for the people in ensuring that proper things are done? Just as you said, the manpower of government at the state level is greatly reduced. The local government areas, I'm not sure if there is any role that they can play in all of these. The local government authorities to ensure that these things don't happen.
No, the LAPCA has their own officials in every local government.
So if they do, what's the gap? Where is the gap?
Yeah, if you have like 1,000 buildings and you have only 2 people in the local government of LAPCA, what are they going to do? So there's a manpower need, but the issue is that for the people, is when you see something, you say something. For example, this building that collapsed, there was a neighbor that also flagged it. He saw what was going on, and he informed the monitoring agencies of what was going on. Of course, they came and sealed the property. And the one unsealed it and continued to work. So it's a question of enforcing laws. Who are those policemen that were backing up an illegal activity? Have they been punished?
Well, I think people should just learn to do themselves a favor. If you're going to embark on such venture, a 7-story building, it's not a bungalow. So persons engaging in that kind of project, they're already persons of means. So if you are in that category, it is expected that whatever amount of money you're deploying to spend, you're spending to erect that kind of structure. Yeah. What is wrong in just spending a fraction more, get a professional involved? Because when that doesn't happen, this is what's likely going to play out. So if we refuse to just a fraction to get the professionals to get things done right, you end up being penny wise, pound foolish. Because these persons pay police officers to come and protect them against state government officials. You spend money.
I think that
so those amounts of money they could have paid to get a professional.
That needs to be seriously probed. So, the fact that 2 factions of policemen.
It happened in Gerard. We saw it on video.
I wonder what the IGP thinks about this, that institution. So it's something that we really need to think about. We need to do ourselves that favor, and not all the time wait on the authorities to let certain things done. These persons, some may have been widely traveled. They know what should be done. So why don't they just do it? So, and besides, you also said off the camera, even if you want to go buy a duplex, get what, a structural engineer or professional to go with you?
If it's on poor soil.
Because there could be poor soil, even if it's finely built, it could be finely built, but if it's on a poor soil, he says, it could be a problem. There could be a problem.
Short-term or long-term.
So, Eddie Atumoyogo is a national president, Building Collapse Prevention Guild. He's also the past president's Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers. Thank you for coming on. And we hope that your profession, your colleagues will keep doing what they have to do. Let it be on record that the right things are done, because posterity will always be the judge at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for having me.
Yeah, all the time. Ma'am, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chamberlain. I was just going to ask you if you think it is actually possible to have a Nigeria without building collapses.
For now, it's not possible, because COREN is already collaborating with state governments, and some state governments have really embraced the need to really stop this menace. Not all states have, and those who have embraced it are really giving the necessary support, which COREN, through his monitoring groups in the various states to enforce these laws, are already in place. Because when you talk of a situation whereby a developer secures himself with the same apparatus of security agencies that are supposed to prevent all this, so what we are now doing is that when you see a super force bigger than yours, you have to bow. So we want the states, you understand, to be involved in this, because once they now provide the necessary security agencies to empower those who are monitoring all these sites, and they come to your site and with intimidating force, with all the necessary members of all the security agencies in their team, you yourself, with the small security agency, at least you will allow them to enforce this. So for now, it will be difficult, but let us just all be involved in it, and let us always cry. Let's be our neighbors, let's be neighbors to each other, so that we'll be able to stop this menace in our country.
Well, we have to thank you for your time and your thoughts this morning. Engineer Peter Osaro-Dion-Igbenijis, who is the President, Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, and also a fellow Nigerian Society of Engineers and fellow Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers. Thank you once again for coming on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much for having me.
We have at least 2 tweets. This one is from Abdusalam Yusuf, talking about curbing building collapse, says, once a building has been flagged, the authorities should take full control of accessibility to the site. Innocent site workers must not be left to die like chickens because of the nonsensical attitudes of the building owners.
Well, this one is from Madu Samuel, who says, let's not forget that some of those government agencies in charge of structural approvals seem to slow down the process and demand exorbitant fees to make the process faster. Government must digitize their processes to speed up things.
And it's a fine place to leave it this beautiful Monday morning. Thank you so much for sending in your comments and your feedback. Ajaokuta Yusuf.
Don't also forget, we made efforts to speak with the authorities in Lagos to get them into the studios. Hopefully, they'll respond soon. I'm Ajaokuta. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
And I am Chamberlain, also determined. Make that decision. It's a good day. See you next time.